This is Basket Case Clubs, CPR Group's podcast where we turn basket case clubs into showcase clubs. G'day everyone and welcome back to Basket Case Clubs. I'm Michael Connolly and I will be your host on this journey through basket casey goodness, and joining me as always is my brother Steve Connolly. G'day Steve.
Hello. Yes, I am very excited to sit down and talk for only a little while today because we are presenting another interview following last episode's chat with Stacey Williamson. We are going to hear today from Kelvin Hastie, who's the president of Bellbowrie Sports and Recreation Club. And
Sports and Community Club now.
Sports and Community Club, sorry, yes.
Yes.
Now, we've done a bit of work with these guys since, would it be?
1819.
Okay. And the club, like many clubs, has struggled through some internal turmoil, and I believe that some of that was still kind of just being ironed out when we started working with them. They're a club that has a number of affiliate organisations that operate from the one facility that they manage, and that, as you know, we've talked in various instances during our podcast episodes, is a pretty common cause for some conflict between those organisations that share facilities. Nevertheless, they've also, as a club, faced some governance challenges. So their constitution wasn't serving them really well, and there was some ambiguity in there, and it provided an opportunity
even
for
to who could vote and who. The AGMs ended up, and they changed it, but still so barflies were voting when really the voting power rested, as per the constitution, with the affiliated sporting organisations, but it was never really implemented properly, and so it just became so messy. And it's that sort of messiness and ambiguity that leads to the ability for people to make their own interpretations of the situation. And when people make an interpretation that is different than somebody else, they can end up in a big blue. And that's unfortunately what was happening quite a bit.
And man, this happens so much in the organisations with which we work. We're helping to run an AGM this coming Sunday for an organisation, and the proverbial has absolutely hit the fan. They tried to run the AGM a month ago and got abandoned because it just turned into a complete shit fight. And in reviewing their constitution to help them prepare for the upcoming meeting, there's so much internal inconsistency. You know, you've got to have the nominations in 14 days out from the AGM, but you've got to send everyone details of who's been nominated for the committee positions 21 days before the AGM. So that same sort of nonsense can really leave volunteers in a position of difficulty come the AGM, which it certainly has for that other organisation. So these guys at Bellbowrie, as you'll hear from Kelvin, went through some really tough times, and there was a bit of a stacking of the meeting, and some people got involved and allegedly did a pretty shit-house job of running the club, and the club was in real financial difficulty, which led to some individuals actually stepping in and remortgaging their house. And anyway, got the club up and running, and they've been through some tough times. Obviously, they got hit like a lot of organisations across southeast Queensland and New South Wales by the floods earlier this year. But back in 2011, they got really smashed, and that was a real struggle for them. I've got some really sad photos, which are up on a photo board in their clubhouse where I was just last week. And it's really interesting to compare the photos of the inside the clubhouse today compared with some of those taken, just after and even during the floods. And it just looked like a war zone. So that's, really soul destroying. And obviously those people who are running the club have also been impacted at home in a lot of cases. So they've done great things to turn their organisation around, and you'll hear some really good takeaways from Kelvin that I'm confident a lot of our listeners will be able to learn from. And really it's focused on having the right people on the bus and setting a really clear direction, a really clear plan, and making sure that you collaborate to build that plan, but then empowering different people in the organisation to carry on with that plan's implementation. So
rather than let you give more spoilers, let's have Kelvin tell the story, hey? So here we go, Kelvin Hastie.
So let's start with when things weren't so good for the club. Can you talk through some of the challenges that the club's faced in recent years?
The club had some difficult times. Probably to elaborate on it, we had a situation where the club's constitution was a bit skew with, and what happened was one of the affiliates stacked the AGM, and effectively the board that was in place got ousted. They came in, took over, and they effectively ran the club bankrupt and then stepped back out. So to the credit of the previous board people, they went, well, hang on, you know, we've got a vested interest. We built this place. We started it. We did everything. So they stepped back in and they actually remortgaged their houses. They gave the bank the securities, and I think it was to the tune of about $1 million from memory. Wow. And what they did was they worked very hard, and they paid that back over 10 years, and they cleared that debt and got the club back up and running again. So that's sort of, and obviously from there, there was one of the first things that happened was the address of change in the constitution to ensure that it never happened again. And it's a funny one, the constitution, because if you look at most clubs, we run under the model rules of incorporation. That doesn't entirely mean that it suits your club and how you're running it and what you're doing. And hence, in our case, there was obviously we had to tweak it to ensure that this didn't happen again. And in doing that, it gave confidence back to the board members. It gave confidence to the people in the community, you know, which is one of the reasons why we're all here, and allowed the club to go forward again. Obviously, the 2011 floods didn't help, as it didn't help anybody, and that created some real challenges in itself. But again, as I say, we're all tragic volunteers, and these people banded together and made sure that, okay, shoulder to the grindstone and let's get through it.
So the floods, how did they affect the club? Did the clubhouse itself flood, or was it the fields primarily that were damaged?
So see that black mark up on the pole?
Yep.
That's where the floods came through. That's how high it was through here.
Shit.
Yep. So it was well and truly underwater. And there's a whole lot of photos just inside the door of which shows what it looked like. So there was people working, you know, when they knew it was coming. There was people here virtually day and night, pulling stuff out, you know, machines, all sorts of things, getting what they could, you know, stuff out of the kitchen, just to be able to and put it to high ground to salvage it. And then after the floods, obviously the clean up and start all over again. So wow. It was very difficult.
Did you get flooded this year as well in 2022?
No, we were lucky. It only came up on the fields and didn't come anywhere else. Okay. So it was just across the fields. Didn't touch the clubhouse or any other areas. Okay. It buggered a few. We've got a big bloody pump over there that sucks the water up out of the dam that we use for irrigation. So I buggered that, and we were lucky that we were able to get another one. There was only 2 left in Australia when we were, so we got that. So in terms of monetary value, it probably cost us about $50,000 to replace things that. But again, you know, we were lucky enough that we were in a position where we'd been, whilst we were being proactive, we were also erred on the conservative side a wee bit to ensure that we had some funds put aside for a rainy day.
And how did that timing of the 2011 floods align with the turmoil that the club was in a governance sense?
Well, they had virtually just cleared the debt. So the timing was actually quite good, because if there was still a debt there and obviously not being able to trade, you know, the ramifications of that, well, we don't want to think about. You know, it could have been terrible for individuals that had, you know, put their houses up.
That absolutely highlights the importance of running a successful business for the proverbial, in your case, literal rainy day, doesn't it? Because
very much.
So many clubs, even up to the NRL level, you know, weren't prepared for a season of downtime.
No.
And I think it highlighted a lot of failure to plan for positive business continuity, and certainly at the not-for-profit level that's the case. So,
very much.
So So that's a testament to the hard work of the club then. Can you just quickly talk us through the structure of the club in terms of your affiliates, and so Bellbowrie?
Sure. So we have Bellbowrie Sports and Community Club. We are the lessee to Brisbane City Council, and we take a lot of pride in that lease, and we really do. Underneath that we have affiliates, which is the Moggle Football Club. We have the Moggle Cricket Club. We have a hockey club, and we also now have Brisbane Touch Rugby. We're looking at obviously expanding on that because we see that there's a need for community in terms of being able to support them, whether it be they can use the fields or whether it's a place for them to come, but we're very supportive of that. So pretty much the four are where we were at, but we are looking to expand on that, and I think it's like every club, always take the adage, let's not be the best kept secret. Let's help and support the community in whatever way. And it doesn't matter whether it's the local tiddlywink side, whatever, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that's great that you've got that mindset of growth, and it sounds like you guys understand really well that before you can look to grow and before you can look to add extra affiliates or sport offerings, you've got to get your house in order. You've got to be running a good business yourself.
Absolutely. It's with any business, and apart from the fact that most of us here have had tragic volunteers, and I use that word tragic because we are tragic at times, but is ensuring that the back office is in order, there's a solid platform that we know, okay, everything's taken care of, now we can start taking the little steps. We know that it's solid. And it's been good because we've in the last probably 18 months we've managed to get or probably 2 years really, not a bit long, but we've managed to get a good group of people, even to the point of staff now. We've changed the roles and staffing and how we do things, and it's been very successful. And now we've got, we take pride that we are with paid employees, that we're putting probably $1 million a year back into the community, and we take pride in that because we're supporting people in our community. And ultimately, it doesn't matter which way you look at it, as a sporting and community club, our role is to support.
So you mentioned the Constitution restructure and the fact that came about after some of the mitigation strategies that led to the rebuild of the club and people putting in their own money and so on.
Sure.
The staff structures and so on, it sounds like you're taking a very business-like approach there, and taking pride out on the field. Can you talk us through any of the other changes that you've made? So mentioning the groundsman, for instance.
So we've employed a full-time, well, when I say full-time, I mean it's 30 hours a week, to look after the grounds. We've had confirmation from Brisbane City Council ground auditors that as far as council grounds go, this main field, we hold the privilege of being the number one ground in Brisbane. So, which is pretty exciting because it justifies our position of being able to, by employing someone to look after it, what we're doing is we're doing two things. A, we're giving the community a facility that's first class, and secondly, we're looking after the asset of the Brisbane City Council under our terms as a lessee. So, and we take a lot of pride in that, we really do.
And the turf wicket block?
The turf wicket block, we've got another guy that's been helping here. The cricket club, they generally run it. But as you do with tragic volunteers, they're ageing. So we've got a guy who's become a part-time curator, and he's taken over that work. And all the sub-districts that are played here, we've had some very, very positive reports from the sub-districts umpires who they rate us, and we're rating very, very high. And that excites us because we see that coming up to these Olympics, there's going to be possibly overseas sides looking for grounds to train. So all of a sudden it endears us to the possible opportunity of being able to facilitate and look after these whether it's overseas, whether it's local, that are getting pushed around or pushed out because the other overseas teams have rights on that. So yeah, so we're pretty excited about the future. We really are. We really are. Been a lot of hard work, but hard work never hurt anyone. So
and so what if now that you've turned things around, what are things like now for the club? How does it feel to be part of the club now compared with how it used to feel?
You know, it's a funny thing. So I've been in the presidency role just over a year, and the way I view it is that it's my turn to steer the ship, and all the work that's been done prior has been on the basis that all it's done is just set me up for my turn. So my role, as I see, apart from being the president, but is to ensure that when at a given point in time I say, hey, I've had enough, that I've done my part with the team to ensure that the next person in, it carries on. You know, we're great on ensuring that we hold people. And you know, one of the things I'd say to any club is that if someone stands down from your committee, generally it's one or two reasons. One is that they're tired. They, you know, as you do as a tragic volunteer, you work pretty bloody hard. Or two, they've got some work commitments that don't allow them the time. So rather than let that person go, say, well, okay, sit down and have a chat and go, look, we're looking at call it a subcommittee, call it whatever you want. But do you think you can give us 3 or 4 hours a week helping in that area, which will endear us to continue on, you know, where all the hard work that you've put in to make sure that we continue on and we don't lose people. We've just done it recently. We've got 2 board members stepping down, and I spoke to them about different roles, and they readily accepted. They said, great idea, fantastic, we'd love to, because we love the club. So I say to clubs, always look at your people. Always, never be scared to ask the question.
That's brilliant, and I love the idea of thinking outside the box when someone gets to the point where they feel as though they've done their bit, or they feel as though it's time for them to take a step back for any number of reasons, to say, well, maybe there's some other role, maybe you can wind down rather than step away, because, as you say, that person or those people are likely to care enough to stick around and do some more work and be able to contribute further good.
Very much so. And as we know, finding volunteers in this day and age is difficult, to say the least. Very difficult. You know, it's just our generation, that's what we did. You know, it didn't matter what the sport was or what it was, we were part of it. You know, righto, boots and all, here we go, let's get stuck and do it. And the next generation coming along, they probably, not that they don't share our passion, but they go, well, hang on, you know, I want to lead my life and I don't have time to do that. And simple as that.
And the pace of life seems to be continually speeding up, and even young kids are talking about the fact that years are going faster and faster. You know, like, I feel like it wasn't until I was an adult and had responsibilities and bills to pay that I felt like time started going faster. My dad has a theory that the world's turning faster and our clocks are keeping time with that, so we don't perceive the speed up. But so just quickly then, I also picked up in what you were saying about this being your turn to steer the ship, and recognising clearly by the sounds of it that you are, as the current board, the short-term custodians of the club.
Yes, we are.
And it seemed like you were touting the benefits of being a systems-based organisation rather than just an organisation that relies on good people at any given time. Can you elaborate on any of the good systems that you've put in place over recent years?
In this day and age, it's about systems, and it doesn't matter which way you look at it. And if you're talking to whether it's your bank or whoever, they want to know what you've got in place. And that's one of the things we identify. So we've got Sarah here, and what she does, she's writing protocols for whether it be for maintenance around the place. We've got manual upon manual upon manual now, which are the pop-up, oops, hang on, we've got to go and check that. And so that we know now that it becomes automatic, as opposed to, hey, Fred, did you check the bloody sump the other day? Oh no, I forgot about that. And again, and it's a necessity, and it's a necessity if you want your club to be successful. Any organisation, whether it's Brisbane City Council, as I say, the bank, whoever, they'll read through and they'll go, perfect, you've covered everything. You're absolutely on the money. We'd love to support you. And does it take time? Yes, it does. We've made that as a paid position because we physically don't have the amount of volunteers to be able to do it on a volunteer basis. But we've worked that into the budget. We've gone, we can do this. Perfect. And very mindful of, as we go down the track of life, these demands for systems and transparency and whatever will become more and more. So if we start, or as we've started the process now, to ensure that it doesn't matter who comes in behind us, it's there. It's in black and white. It's part of the protocol of the club. This is what must be done.
I love that approach, and I think the other really important thing that you just raised is the recognition that we can't expect volunteers to do everything anymore.
No.
We're going to run a successful business. We've got to engage the right people in the right roles, and sometimes that's going to mean putting them in paid roles, whether it be out there on the field and here in the club or in other administrative functions. And people as customers, and we like to refer to members of clubs, whether it be the footy club, hockey club,
sure,
or Bellbowrie itself, as customers, because as soon as you recognise that those people have needs and wants as members, and you consider them instead as customers, then you subconsciously even change the way that you think about them.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that we lacked, I think, earlier on. So what we've done is we've been very clear in defining how the structure works. It's Bellbowrie Sports and Community Club, we are the lessee. You are a customer underneath, and accordingly so we have expectations on behaviour, how you do things, etc., paying your bills, and so on and so on. And you're quite right. With that clear defined line, things have become a lot easier because it's, no, this is what it is. And don't get me wrong, there's board members who have worked very, very hard, for user agreements and these types of things to ensure that, again, it's a clear defined line. There's no grey area. We don't like grey areas,
yes,
because there's always problems when there's grey areas.
That's so true. If you were talking with another organisation that was facing some of the same or similar challenges that your club has faced, can you talk through any advice that you would offer them?
It's an interesting one because different clubs work in different ways, and they do. And whether it's locality or whatever it may be. One of the things that we found that worked very well, and I would offer it to any other club, is sit down, set your plan, make sure you've got the right people, and stick to it. There's always going to be the odd kink in the road that you might have to go this way or that way, but stay to what your plan is. And invariably, as we know, if you have a plan, you'll get to the end goal, and you will. And I've been part of a lot of clubs in my life in different types of sports, and the plan's been sort of 3/4 set, and it ends up, bloody 10 blocks away, and completely different to what it was actually set as. And then everybody wonders why we failed. It's like, stick to your plan, have your plan, make it clear. Everybody, this is the road we're going down. This is what we want to achieve, and so so set it. Make sure everybody's right, and away you go.
We often use the analogy, once you've got your plan, of being kind of like a roadmap, but also even to codify it in terms of a sporting setting. If you were to stand at one end of the football field that I'm looking at now, and stand in the middle of one goalpost and look at the other goalpost and say, I want to get to the other end of the field and find myself in exactly the same position that I'm in here under this goalpost, in the middle under that goalpost. And if you then look down at your feet as you take step after step after step, and you never stop and look up to make sure that you're on the right journey and you're sticking to your plan, you're not going to get there. You're going to end up over in one of the dugouts or at a corner flag.
That's right.
At maybe at best. So
and then go, what happened there?
Exactly. So you need to be monitored. Once you've got your plan, as you say, stick to it. There might be kinks in the road, whether that be a flood or a global pandemic.
Sure.
But the idea of having a plan in place and sticking to it and monitoring your progress and tracking that progress and coming up with, deviations as you go is expected, but then putting in place measures to deal with those and to ensure that you're still broadly heading in the right direction.
Very much. And just on that, it's interesting because being a not-for-profit organisation, we've had some pushback on putting full-time people in place. And if we were a corporation, we had shareholders, spend the money because it's going to be good for it. As a don't spend the bloody money. God, stop. Whoa, what are you doing? This is disaster. And it's part of the journey and understanding what you are, what are you there for, what's your role, and how will the community benefit. And then I say to people that once you come to that understanding and you go, okay, we are here as custodians, and I keep saying, and I use this word a lot, custodians, it's our turn, and it's our turn to ensure that we continue the road of progress, but make sure everything's in place for the next lot of people. And it's challenging and it's difficult, but the rewards of seeing people and community benefit, puts a smile on your heart.
And you've got to spend money to make money.
Yes, you do.
In any business.
Yes, you do.
So it's great that you recognise the
kind wonderful. And and whilst I don't have a lot of time,
yes.
But if there's anybody out there that I could offer some advice to or whatever, more than happy for them to get in touch.
Brilliant.
They can get in touch through you.
Yeah.
We're all fulfilling the same role. It's just people go about it differently, and if someone can give I'd love for someone to come in and go, Kel, doing a great job, but why don't you look at that? Why don't you? Hey.
Oh, that's such a good point. People realise that they could also achieve the same sorts of turnarounds that other clubs had achieved, and it's that idea of a focus on continuous improvement is really important, rather than a club resting on its laurels and saying, oh, we've done all we can do now.
No.
But rather to recognise that there's always, like any good business, there's always more that you can do. There's always
absolutely,
further enhancements, and sharing that knowledge is so important. So out of last year's webinar series, and it hasn't happened yet for a number of reasons, but there was a suggestion that there should be a volunteer leaders network that we establish, and whether that be breakfast meetings or virtual 501s, online, where people catch up and have a drink and share ideas and challenge each other. Because Michael's in a bit of a roundtable group which is organised by a consultant that has done some work with us in business development and strategic planning in the past, which is funny that we get people in to help us do the things that we help others to do, but it demonstrates you can't do it yourself.
And you're right.
You need external support in
absolutely.
That stuff. So he's in a roundtable group, and he meets with some CEOs and general managers of businesses far larger than ours, which interestingly still face some of the similar challenges, just on a broader scale. So he really gets a lot of value out of those discussions and information and ideas sharing. So we reckon that it would be great for people like yourself, who are leaders of clubs like Bellbowrie, to get together in person or virtually and establish a real kind of network. And council are very keen, but council have also got a lot going on.
They have. I look at it some days and I think, oh God, you poor buggers, and they do. And, there's custodians all over the place, they rely on people like ourselves and other clubs to look after that. Say, well, there's your lease, so look after it.
That's right.
And, it's just as simple as that. But yeah, we think we're in a better place. We think we can be in 5 years. We think that we've got some solid ideas. We have a plan, and we want to ensure and to be able to share knowledge with other people. I think that's a wonderful concept because, and you're right, the problems are the same. They're just in different disguise. They are. It's just, and people go, oh, how the hell do you know that?
Yeah. Very good. Kel, thank you very much for
absolute pleasure, Steve. Buddy, it's been wonderful.
So there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing from Kelvin. He's got a great turn of phrase and is a really friendly guy that's, as you heard, really down to earth. And I think some of the key takeaways for me is firstly how sweet it is that Kelvin, said to when you walk in and see the change that you've achieved collectively, it just puts a smile on your heart. So I really like the comment that he made. Yeah. The lovely cheesy grin that he gave when delivering that line was fitting.
Yeah. I also loved how Kelvin told the story that only a couple of weeks ago we did our 50th podcast. I was going to say 50th anniversary again. We did our 50th episode of Basket Case Clubs, and we did a recap on a lot of the stories that we've told. And I love how Kelvin just pointed at so many of those things. Like, don't go it alone. Seek help. You lean on your networks. You're not alone. You can do anything. If it's been done, anything is possible. So if it's been done by somebody else, you can do it. So it was wonderful to hear those sorts of messages from somebody who's been in the business for quite a while, like Kel has. And it's always so heartening to hear that and to have it shared peer to peer as well.
So smile heartening, yes. And it's also so valuable for our listeners to hear from their peers, as we touched on a few weeks ago, because we can tout all of these stories and turn them into our own anecdotes from organizations with which we've worked. But it's really easy for people to sit back still potentially and say, oh yeah, but you guys don't understand our club. We're going through this challenge or that, and we're this type of organization. So through these interviews where we're sharing the learning outcomes from other organizations that have been basket cases that have turned things around to become showcases, it demonstrates that you actually can achieve greatness in a volunteer organization. Yes, it might take a mix of volunteers and staff and having the right people in the right roles, but with commitment and a clear plan and sticking to that plan, but being prepared to remain flexible as necessary. For instance, if floods come along or a global pandemic or any number of other challenges that organizations with which we work face, you're more likely to achieve success. So hopefully you've all enjoyed today's interview, and we look forward to sharing more of these with you in coming episodes, because we've got lots of people who want to chat with us. And if you would like to chat with us, give us a call or shoot us an email.
Yeah, perfect. And look, I also really look forward to continuing our work with Bellbowrie Sports and Community Club as well, because it has been a remarkable turnaround. At the time, it felt like it was dragging on. And look, I've only been involved for 5 years, and you've been involved pretty actively for some of those as well, particularly in some of the projects that we've worked on with them. But for the guys who've been involved for, some of them, they're maybe 10 times that, Steve, who have been involved in the club for 50 years, for as long as it's been around. It can really feel very challenging. So I really look forward to now watching the next chapters in the club as they scoot to showcasey goodness. So, Steve, thanks again for doing a wonderful job having a chat with Kel. Thank you, of course, to Kelvin and to all of the team at Bellbowrie Sports and Community Club for the great work that you're doing. And if you're not already following us on social media, make sure you do on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn in particular. You can check out our website, cprgroup.com.au. Make sure that you go and have a look at the blogs and the old episodes of podcasts there and sign up to our newsletter. Thanks, of course, to Jess for making us sound silky smooth every episode. And Steve, until next time, thank you for being my partner in basket casey goodness.
Yes. Thank you. See you next time. Ciao.
Bye.